I want you to cast your mind back to May 2nd of 2016. Now you're probably thinking, Cameron, I can't even remember what I had for my dinner yesterday. How am I going to remember that? Which is fair enough, I get it, but I'll remind you. May the 2nd, 2016 is the day that Leicester were crowned English champions at 10,000 to 1 odds. Like, it was incredible. And in the past 7 years, we have not seen any underdog go on a run like they did. Until now. Girona finished 10th last season, but they currently sit top of the Liga with 34 points, ahead of the likes of Real Madrid, Athletico Madrid and Barcelona, and they don't look like they're going to be stopping anytime soon. And I want to take a deeper look into what's actually going on in the northeast of Spain. So who are Girona, and how the hell are they doing this? Well, in August of 2017, City Football Group purchased a 44.3% stake of the club Girona. Now, this doesn't really come as a surprise considering the City Group already owned clubs like Mumbai City, New York City, Melbourne City, Troyes, who is an important club that we'll come back to later, and of course the Giants, Manchester City. And this is of course alongside about another 8 in their portfolio that I've forgotten to mention. What's extra interesting about this deal though is that Girona Football Group already owned an 80% stake in their club, but when City Group came knocking, they willingly dropped their stake from 80% down to 44.3% to match the City Group. This is a bit weird, you might be thinking, but the figurehead of the Girona Group is none other than Pere Guardiola. Yes, that is the brother of Pep Guardiola. Now what's more is that Man City seem to be quite willing to help out their partners, their sister club Girona. We can see this because 5 of the current squad players have already played for another club amongst the City Group. This includes the likes of Savio, who is on loan from Troyes, who again we'll come back to later. But they've just come up with the philosophy of just signing young players like Eric Garcia as well on loan from Barcelona. But it mustn't go without saying that they have also retained a good balance in their squad. Players like Daley Blind and Christian Chouamani, even Paulo Gazzaniga, are within their squad, and they all have a bit of experience that probably every title challenger needs. But what's even more interesting, and every single one of these seem to have a point to prove. It never really worked out at Bayern Munich for Daley Blind. Stuani was a bit of a Middlesbrough reject and just floated around the La Liga relegation teams for the longest of times. And Paulo Gazzaniga, he never really even got his career started in the Premier League, so they've all got a point to prove. So then we're kind of left thinking, are these players out for revenge? And what is different about Girona this year that they didn't have last year? Now on screen you can see the starting lineup of Girona's last game of the 2022-23 season, where they lost 2-1 away at Osasuna. Now a lot of these players haven't necessarily left, but the likes of Lopez and Bernardo can only seem to find themselves on the bench at the moment. But most noticeably, out of all the changes they've made, is they lost Valentin Castellanos. He was their star man up front on loan from New York City, another City Group team. And whilst he's now in Lazio in the Serie A, he was Girona's top scorer last season, finding the net a total of 13 times across La Liga. And this seemed like it was going to be a bit of a difficult hole for a team like Girona to fill. Now, let me introduce you to a man called Artem Dovbyk. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I don't know. He is a Ukrainian star who has signed for 7.75 million euros from SK Dnipro 1. Have you ever heard of them? Because I certainly haven't. Now, he had big shoes to fill, but he seems to be doing a pretty good job of it. The Ukrainian has got 7 goals and 5 assists in his 13 starts already this season. Like, that is 12 goal contributions across the season so far, and we're only a third of the way in. In fact, he's even contributed to 39% of all of Girona's goals this season. That's how big of an asset he has been. But what's even more baffling is their recruitment doesn't stop there, because they also signed a young on-form winger, a young Brazilian by the name of Savio, or Savinho, one of the two, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This 19-year-old Brazilian, by the way, they've got on loan from Troyes, who signed him for 6 million euros from Athletico MG in the Brazilian league. But he immediately went on loan to PSV and he had a decent season. But he's a very versatile winger who can go on his left or right foot, cut inside or dribble down to the byline, and he's already got 4 goals and 4 assists this season in La Liga. He's 19-year-old, like he's younger than me, and he's killing it. And if you're a defender, if you're playing right back up against him, you are not catching him. This man is rapid, and he is absolutely terrorising defences all across the Liga. And he is probably going to have to stay at Girona for the next season as well, because he is just such an exciting young player to watch. But what's even more crucial is how he then fits into the tactics. Because he often starts as a left wing, but when we get into the tactics, you will see what an important role he plays in that front line. Now, this does go to say that they also made some really good signings in Torre and Couto as well from Man City. They've also been incredibly influential players, Couto even starting at times at right back. So they have made some really good, promising signings that are actually exciting to watch. So who is Michel? The Spaniard seems to be loved by every Girona fan, partly because of how he conducts himself off the pitch, but also for his crazy tactics. It's worth noting this isn't Michel's first time in La Liga. In 2017, he was appointed the manager of Rayo Vallecano in the Segunda Division, and he got them promoted within the same season. But halfway through the 18-19 campaign, he got sacked midway through the season and the club ended up getting relegated. But then July 2019 and he is appointed Huesca manager, again a team in the Segunda Division. Again, he gets them promoted and midway through the following season, he gets sacked. But in July 2021, Girona took a chance on Michel and put all their faith into him in getting the club promoted, and he certainly repaid this faith. He got the club promoted, and despite Girona being the favourite odds to go straight back down the next season, he managed to steer them into a 10th place finish. Now, if history was going to repeat itself, this current season should be halfway through where Michel gets sacked, but he knew he had to change something to stop that from happening for the third time in a row. But he's definitely made a big change and it is paying off. He has switched things up. The tactics, the team, the style, the fluidity, everything is just so much different. And they are killing it. Now, the team lines up like this. The formation suggests it should be a 3-4-3, with positional football being an integral part in how they create such a fluid, progressive style of attacking football. But the term should be is the part I want to focus on here, because what actually should be a 3-4-3 is more of a 3-2-5, or even in most cases actually, a 3-1-6. And I'd like to show you this photo. This is in the game against Osasuna, and you can see here that Alex Garcia is playing as the single pivot role as they're trying to break down this defence. And what I want to highlight to you is the number of players they have committed forwards and also the zones they take up. Dovbyk is in the middle, occupying pretty much both centre-backs because he's such a handful to deal with, and Gutierrez and Sigankov have also picked up the half spaces between the fullback and the centre-back. What this does is create such an overload in the middle that the fullbacks are drawn in, so it narrows the pitch down. And look at the width that the team has on the wings. I said earlier about how crucial Savio was to this team, and this just goes to highlight how important it actually is. And they have left Savio and Martin as the two wingers. And just after this screenshot, Garcia plays a wonderful pass out to Savio, who lays it off to Gutierrez, and his cross goes in and Dovbyk makes it 2-2. They went on to win this game 4-2. They scored another 2 goals after the 70th minute. Now, what's also crucial into how Michel wants his team to play is how seamlessly the players can just interchange with each other. The positions, someone moves out of their position, someone knows exactly where to go to cover it. And in this photo, the game is 2-2 against Almeria. And you can see here, Savio and Couto are taking up the winger positions in this front line of 5. And what's interesting is the player that's on the ball, it's not Alex Garcia, it's actually Daley Blind, the left centre-back. He has been allowed to charge forwards into a central attacking role, basically. And he's able to do this because if we compare the roles of Gutierrez, in the last screenshot, he pushed forward into the half space in the attacking line. This time, he's actually occupied the second line of attack. He's held off his run to allow Blind to go forward, because that means if they do lose the ball, Gutierrez is more than capable of covering that position that Blind has left. Anyway, Blind plays a wonderful pass forward. Dovbyk scores again to make it 3-2. Now, this is from the same game, but again, I want to highlight the role of Garcia here. Regardless of the fact that he is quite simply just incredible, he basically, during the attacking phases, occupies Girona's midfield on his own, and he does it brilliantly. Like, he is pretty much epitomising the role of a deep-lying playmaker. And again here we see this front 6. This time it's of Savio, Martin, Stuani, Herrera, Gutierrez and Fernandez this time. And having a player like Garcia in the midfield, it just allows Herrera to play a bit more freely and push up into the attacking line. Now, obviously, that does mean that they can get caught out, and sometimes you will see Gutierrez drop back into a CDM role, almost to kind of cover their grounds, just in case there is a turnover of possession. But it's worth the risk that they play. I mean, it even shows the fact that Herrera has actually got the 5th most shots out of all midfielders in the league this season. And he's got the joint 3rd most in the 6-yard box out of all players this season, with 6, alongside Alvaro Morata. And this is only beaten by Hugo Druro of Valencia and his teammate Dovbyk with 9. He's just allowed to... His creative expression that he can do is purely only because that Garcia is able to cover him in this midfield line. But this also just lets them overload the attack, and the defence of the opposition is outnumbered. They have to move players around to cover 6 people coming towards them, and it opens up so much space. And it works. It just works, and it's fascinating. I love it. I love it. I'm honestly I am obsessed with this style of football. Now, this last image I want to show you is actually from their latest game against Rayo Vallecano, where they won 2-1. And I want to focus more on the defensive structure that they've got going on here instead of their attack. And this photo comes not long after a failed Rayo Vallecano attack. And let's now look at how Girona play out from a defensive transition. You can see here that, well, they spent most of this game in their 3-1 base, often in their 3-1-6. But they would quite often also transition back into a back 4, I believe mostly a 4-1-4-1. And in this screenshot, you can see that Gutierrez has already pushed forward into that number 8 position, again in that half space like he normally likes to occupy. Yet on this occasion where they are still transitioning, the Rayo Vallecano attackers haven't fully got back into position yet, and Savio's on the ball. So Daley Blind pushes out to the left a little bit, almost like a left-back position, to give another passing option. But if this ball was overhit, the Rayo Vallecano attackers could have just sprinted onto it, and it'll be a one-on-one situation. But what happens instead is that Alex Garcia, the midfielder that we keep talking about, has now been tasked with dropping back into a centre-back role. He's basically occupying the left centre-back position while they're still transitioning out of their back 4. And this just gives them that bit of time to push people forward, but conservatively, so that they're not risking... I mean, this is in the 70 minutes of the game. They're obviously not going to take any risks in conceding a goal if they can help it. So they've just managed to come up with a system that allows Garcia to drop back when he's needed, and he almost overloads the defence so that the opposition feels like they don't have enough attackers. But then he also pushes forward to then allow the Girona attack to form that line of 6, and then the opposition feel like they don't have enough defenders to cope with that line of 6. Now, we've seen that they can defend pretty smartly and they attack with numbers, but the question is, and that we are all asking ourselves, can they do it? I think I speak for most of us when I say that I would love to see them go on and win the league. I mean, it would definitely be the most relevant underdog story we've seen since Leicester in 2016. Truthfully, I just don't think they're going to get it. And as we've seen with the likes of Spurs this season under Ange Postecoglou, when it rains, it can pour, and it doesn't take much for this Girona team to start dropping off a little bit. And whilst I believe they can push for European places, I just don't think they have the edge that the teams around them currently possess. Teams like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Athletico Madrid, Real Sociedad, I think, are pushing up there as well. They are all teams that just have that bit more experience in these positions in the league, that know what to do to keep hold of it. And I do believe this just could be the difference between them winning the league and them dropping down to maybe a top 6 position instead. And it is also worth noting that out of the 13 games Girona have played this season, only 4 of them have come in against a top 10 side. And they have picked up 7 out of 12 points out of these games, actually. This being Sociedad, Real Madrid, Las Palmas and Rayo Vallecano. But out of these, only Sociedad and Real Madrid are in the top 6, and they only managed to get 1 point against this after a 1-1 draw against Sociedad, and they lost 3-0 to Real Madrid. And this shows that whilst they are absolutely dominating and thrashing the smaller teams in the Liga, we are yet to see them prove that they can do it against one of the big dogs. We just don't know if they can do it against the likes of Barcelona, especially if you have to go to the Camp Nou, you have to go to the Bernabeu, and you have to perform the same way. Obviously, they've got some experience from last year, but under this new style, will they be able to cope? I don't know. I do just think this will make the difference. I can't predict where they're going to finish. I would love to see them finish top, but my expectation is probably somewhere along the top 6 or top 8, and I do think they're going to drop off a little bit, but we all like to dream. We all want to hope. And now my question for you is, where will Girona finish in La Liga this season? Will they get European places? Will they drop down far? Will they win it? I want to know what you guys think. But anyway, we'll have our fingers crossed for Girona.